Hi everybody, welcome to another podcast episode. My name is Aleš, and what I'm going to do today is walk you through the way I use calendar as a system to support my meaningful work. I won't suggest I'm perfect in here, so what I'm going to offer are systems that I'm learning to implement, and sometimes I'm failing, but for the most part I can see the benefits whenever I am able to adhere to these principles. I'm going to touch upon three specific parts when it comes to planning your time using calendar. I'm going to talk about planning your activities, about tracking them, and about reviewing and adjusting your planning for the future. So three fairly discrete steps. When it comes to planning, most of you probably know that planning is essential if you accomplish something greater than an activity that could be fit within one working day or possibly working week, because your mental capacity is simply usually not big enough to conceive larger project and plan in time. At least, to be fair, my mental capacity is not that great to do that. So if you want to accomplish something greater, you probably need to plan. Well, no surprise there. So what is interesting about planning? Something I didn't know or didn't implement 5 years ago, and now I'm much more diligent, and maybe this will help you. So number one, have everything when it comes to calendars in one place. Most of people I know, they juggle with work calendar and private calendar as separate entities. This is essentially detrimental to your productivity and to clarity of where your time goes. I've been doing this for a long time, having Google Calendar as my private calendar, and Outlook as the weapon of choice at work. Well, not really a weapon of choice. I wasn't free to choose it. That's what we use at work. When I combine both of those, I was able to see much more clearly where my time goes. And it didn't happen to me what used to happen before, that I missed some events from my private calendar because I just didn't see them on my work calendar. And I went overboard with my work tasks just to learn later that an appointment that I had in my private calendar already passed. So what I suggest, if you are like me and you can't really choose the type of calendar you're using for your work, for me this is Outlook, which is something that's mandated by my employer, put your private tasks and private appointments into Outlook as well. There's a multitude of tools that allow you to synchronize the Google Calendar with Outlook and the other way around. I am currently using the tool called Sync It, which allows you to kind of populate events set in one calendar in the other. But in general, if you can, just stick to the work calendar and put your private events in there. There are options to kind of log these events so your coworkers do not necessarily see details, but having it in there is essential because you only have, surprise, surprise, one set of hours in each day. So if something is blocked for personal event, you can't use it for work and vice versa. This brings us to time blocking. Time blocking very simply means that you block time increment in your calendar for any task you want to accomplish. So instead of working with task lists, you embed these projected tasks in time. This sounds very simple. So basically what it means is, suppose I want to work on a report. I assume this report will take me 60 minutes. So instead of just putting it on a task list and hope that I will magically find 60 minutes in my day to work on that, I will just block a specific increment of time to accomplish this task. Many people I know don't do that. I wasn't doing that for the longest time. and I was kind of hoping that the time will appear, and it didn't. So what I'm doing now is I'm really putting blocks of time in my calendar. I'm putting it there for every working day to make sure that these tasks actually have some time allocated to them. And what I suggest here, maybe as a next step, is think about when you feel more energized. Are you a lark? Are you more productive in the mornings, or are you an owl and the mornings are horrible for you because you are still half asleep? Based on that, I suggest you block the calendar for the work that requires your deep concentration in the times when you are the most productive. What I'm trying to do is blocking my mornings for my meaningful work and for something that requires my attention, and keeping the afternoons open for calls or urgent events, something that I need to tackle based on requirement of my coworkers. Of course, this doesn't always work. I'm still getting call invites and some events popping up in my calendar in the mornings, but still it provides certain guidance to people who check my calendar to kind of nudge them into these empty slots in my afternoons. That would be time blocking. What I'd like to say, and it's very, very important, and I'd say like it's the next level of time blocking. The time blocking makes sense not just for activities that are obvious, right? Work tasks, but even for breaks. And I mean, lunch break is not something that should be an empty space in your calendar. It should be a time block where you take lunch. It was recommended to me lately that time blocks should actually fill your entire calendar, entire 24 hours, including sleep. Because you need to sleep. Sleep takes place in time. It takes time. And blocking in your calendar the 8 hours of sleep gives you very clear indication at what time you actually need to go to sleep if you want to have 8 hours before you wake up in the scheduled time. I started doing that a week ago, and it was very insightful to see how my sleep is really kind of a space of a denial for me. Pushing forward the time I'm going to bed actually meant, when I tracked it in the calendar, that I needed to push the wake up time as well. And seeing this in the calendar the day before is a big revelation that allowed me to be more mindful when it comes to use my time. So that would be the planning stage. So to review, everything in one calendar, no two calendars, use time blocking, and within the time blocking, schedule everything. Schedule an hour for break. Schedule 2 hours for TV. If you want to watch TV for 2 hours, okay, but schedule it. Don't hope it's gonna happen. Don't feel that this is something that is gonna happen unscheduled. It probably will with TV, but then you're gonna look back at your day and you wouldn't know where it went. So that would be the planning. Now I'm moving to the second of the three stages. So we talked about planning. Let me talk a little bit about tracking. We as humans are suffering with behavioral bias, something that allows us to be irrational, but still very, very unpredictable when it comes to assessing how long a task takes. It is something that is well described by science. It's called a planning fallacy, and that means that we systematically underestimate the amount of time needed to accomplish a task. I checked that, and it is really true. So what I realized for me, and this is slightly embarrassing, it's still going on, is that for many tasks, I estimate less than half the time needed to accomplish them. So normally I plan an hour for a task, and the task will take me 2 hours or 2.5. If this happens to you every now and then, you don't need to feel bad. This is human nature. Many people do that, and the planning fallacy is very, very extensively studied. So it doesn't say anything about your intelligence, even though sometimes I feel it has a lot to do with my lack of intelligence. I make myself feel bad about it, but this is normal. So what you want to do, you want to track. You want to really have a mechanism that allows you to learn how much time things actually take. This is especially important for repetitive tasks. So what I suggest you do, and I'm actually doing it right now while recording this podcast, is tracking time. Use a stopwatch. Use a technique that would allow you to track how much time the thing actually takes. I did it with my morning routines. So now I know that just preparing breakfast actually takes me 20 minutes. I was delusional before I started tracking. I thought, yeah, that's 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, it's just a couple of things. I just toss the oats in my bowl and I'm done. But it takes 20 minutes, with brushing my teeth, making coffee, all of that. Now I have 20 minutes set aside in my calendar for making breakfast, and this saves me a lot of frustration. But I'm moving a little bit forward in here to the third point, which would be review and adjust. Before we go there, I just want to mention one technique that is fairly simple for tracking, because not everybody is excited about the idea of using stopwatch and track your bathroom breaks or whatever. For some of us, this might work, and you might be excited to build a spreadsheet around that. If you're not crazy, maybe you want something simpler. In that case, you want to check out something called Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro stands in this case for a tomato, and it is related to these old-fashioned kitchen timers that you wound up, and many of them looked like a Pomodoro, like a tomato. So hence the term. A Pomodoro technique is very simple. It basically says that you divide your time into short increments. In case of Pomodoro, as a default, they recommend 25 minutes working on a task, being called one Pomodoro. After 25 minutes of focused work, single tasking, working on one task only, you should take 5 minutes break, and then you continue with another Pomodoro. If you have tasks that take longer than 25 minutes, you just do multiple Pomodoros. Within each of the Pomodoros, you just fully focus on the task without distractions, and then you take the break. This fits pretty neatly into how calendars work for most of us when you work with 30 minutes increments. For me, work calls mostly take 30 minutes. This is doable, but if you find yourself unable to focus for 25 minutes, you can of course define the Pomodoro as you will. So maybe for you it will be 10 minutes focused work and then a little break. That's totally up to you. It allows you to do some simple tracking when you know how many Pomodoros a day you actually spend working on something. So with the previous example, for me, making breakfast would be, well, one Pomodoro spent preparing breakfast. So we talked about planning, we talked about training, we talked about tracking a little bit. Let's talk about the last step, which would be reviewing and adjusting. So what you want to do after you've planned something and tracked something, you want to review what actually happened. So I mentioned the planning fallacy. So what is very likely to happen with your day, and this is happening to me every day, even if I'm trying to fix this for a long time, is you had a plan, then life happened, and your original plan that looked so neat and nice in the morning was drastically altered by urgent calls, requests, planning fallacy when you planned too little time to tackle something, And at the end of the day, you look at your calendar that you planned in the morning, and it just doesn't resemble how your day went at all. What you want to do at this point is review and readjust the calendar in a way that it reflects what actually happened in that day. Did you have a call that was supposed to take 30 minutes and it took 45? Well, just, drag that box in a calendar if you're using computer, and just stretch it to 45 minutes. Yes, stretch that slot in the calendar in the past. Of course, it already happened. I mean, you can't get the time back. But when you review your calendar at the end of the day, it will allow you to see what really happened with your time. And it gives you a better prediction for the next time, for the next iteration. So what's important in here is removing the sense of guilt and the sense of failure out of this process. What we often tend to do, and I'm guilty of that almost every day, is we look back at what we planned, and when we did not deliver that, we feel guilty about ourselves. We feel bad. We feel, oh, I should have done better, and this is not right, and what's wrong with me? Remove all this. What you did through tracking is you collected data about how the reality looks like. You can use this data through the review to adjust your predictions for next time. Okay, the breakfast preparation takes 20 minutes. It's going to be 20 minutes. Deal with it. That's the reality of this planet and of the time-space continuum, whatever that means. And next day, I'm going to have 20 minutes allocated for that. Maybe I'm going to be able later to do it in 18 minutes, maybe 15. Maybe I can do some improvements in there. But it is much better than fooling myself into believing that I can do it in 5. Because I can spend weeks and months and years living in this delusion that something takes me 5 minutes and then being frustrated at the end of the activity. Okay, so that would be the main steps. Plan using just one calendar and time blocking. Track what is actually happening using Pomodoro technique or stopwatch or whatever works for you. And as a third step, review what actually happened and adjust your prediction based on that. I know it sounds simple, and it actually is, but as many activities that are simple, it doesn't mean it is easy. It's not easy for me. I'm gonna keep trying and improving, and I invite you to try as well. If you have any further suggestion for effective or efficient or efficate, whatever are the English versions of the effective word, any tips regarding good use of calendar, put them in the comments, share it with me and everyone else who may be watching. And I'm gonna see you next time with another episode. Thank you. Have a great day.